Today we have a big drawdown driven by Tesla. I want to talk about that, but I want to talk in general about how it feels when risk comes and bites you in the back. And that this is definitely what's happening today. We're in the business of taking risk, which is doing things where the outcome is uncertain. I want to talk about a situation with my son, which is similar, and I think it transfers to the business of the hedge fund. He has a certain situation in school, he has a certain situation in sports. It doesn't matter what the details are. The problem is that the situation right now is not very good, so you have to either double down, take more, invest more, do more, or you have to pull the plug and do something else. Both are very difficult decisions to make, and it's occupying me right now. That's why I want to share this, and it's related to, of course, the business of risk. The purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund, and this is certainly within the realm of how it feels like to run a hedge fund. So this is not the Wrong podcast. It's November 9th, 2021. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is down 14.05%. The market is down 50 basis points. For the year, we are up roughly 41%. The market's up 22.3%. We are outperforming by 18.7%. Tesla had another 10% drawdown today, which draws down our fund by like 14%, given the size of Tesla right now. I think it's still driven by what happened over the weekend with the news of Elon Musk. There's definitely some technical trading going on. Yesterday, we actually had good support. Today, the support is gone. I don't want to get too much hung up with the details here because, as we've spoken about this many times, our horizon is very long, and actually, the horizon also defines your risk. If your horizon is very short, you have a lot more risk, a lot more uncertainty. If your time horizon is longer, the uncertainty goes down. And this is definitely the way we manage Orange Capital Partners. The constraint is leverage. We have to make sure that we survive, that we can take drawdowns, and that we don't have margins calls and things like that. This is the constraint. But within those confines, we are very successfully managing the fund. We have a performance of over 20% annual cumulative average return over the last 13 years since inception, which is phenomenal. And I think we can continue doing that. So again, going for very high returns with very high concentration, accepting high volatility on a daily basis, but certainly being okay with the long-term projections where the returns really matter. Now let's talk about my son's situation, because this is really what is occupying me these days. So he plays in a sports team that is working very hard. It is a soccer team. Again, I don't want to go into details. This is not about him or the team or anything. So if anybody's listening that is related to this situation, please use this as a more general purpose discussion. And this is just a placeholder. I could use a football team or a baseball team or anything like that. It doesn't matter. It's the same fundamental problem set. And the problem set is that it's my son and the team. They're working very hard. They're investing a lot of time, a lot of brain power, a lot of their blood, sweat, and tears, as they say, and the results are relatively mediocre, pedestrian. And what's even worse, the sport itself is organized in a sort of pyramid way. So it's up or out kind of thing, or up or being relegated to non-relevance. And this is kind of the situation that my son's team is in right now. It's we're not able to play at the highest level, and therefore we're kind of relegated to irrelevance, which is very hard for the kids, for my son, for me, for the parents, because you do invest a lot of time and effort and money, and then your reward is relatively pedestrian. In other words, you could have the same experience. Just to give an example, let's say we travel a lot, we play other teams in other states, but since our level is not high enough to play the best teams, we play maybe the second or third tier teams. And quite frankly, we could probably play the same kind of level even around here in the Bay Area. So instead of flying across the country to play somebody, we could just play somebody here 2 hours away. This is the problem set. And the question now is, of course, what do you do? What do you do? What is your ambition? And I think I want to discuss this within the context of risk taking. Again, this is a placeholder for the more general discussion of taking risk. What do you do in a situation when you think you're doing everything you can, but the rewards are not there? Do you change? Do you double down? I think the first thing you do is you define your goals. It's always important, particularly in situations of uncertainty. I mean, you should do that all the time, but you certainly should do it when things are not so good. What exactly are you trying to achieve? What's the purpose of this? So let's get to the situation with my son. Why are you training? Why are you playing? What is the goal? The goal for my son is first and foremost to rise up the ranks, to have a chance, to be in a position to receive a professional contract whenever the time is ripe for that. This could be in about 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, but still be in that trajectory to get there. I think this is his stated goal. I would say as a parent, I'm okay with that. What it takes for that is, of course, you have to. I mean, this is kind of like the sperm statistics. You know, there's millions of kids globally trying to make it. Only a few make it. So it's a very, very tough sort of up or out type of competition. And my son has been doing very well in this competition so far. Has always been able to make the next step towards that goal. Right now, he's, I would say, still on track, but the track's muddy, so it's not going as smooth. To some extent, that's my son's problem, but mostly it's actually the team's problem. The team itself is just not good enough. I would say my son is definitely in within the context of the level he should be playing. He's fine. He has some shortcomings, but those are trainable. Those are how do you say, you with experience and training you can get those done. But if the team as a whole doesn't hold up, the results fall off, the motivation goes down. That's the risk that we stand in right now. So what we need to do, so once we define the goal as parents, now we have to make sure that the team's on track with that goal. And this is something we need to do in the next couple of weeks. Particularly, of course, have a conversation with the coach, but also with other parts of the team. This was partly the reason in the previous team where we were very clear about our goals, and then we got feedback from coaching and parents and players that they don't share our goals, and then we chose to leave. So this is the same situation here. I think it's a good process. I think it's a process that is healthy to go out there and state your goals, state what you want to achieve, and then see what the feedback is. And I think if people don't want to share your goals, if the majority says no, you're in the wrong place, then you need to go and leave. So I guess this is a very important point. I think we humans, we tend to always kind of pull the plug, or at least think, oh, you know what, this is not good enough for me. I'm going to go somewhere else. And I'm trying to resist that urge because I feel like every situation should be always given more than just one chance. I think people always try to do their best, and sometimes they get derailed. This applies to people as much as to teams, coaches, parents, all. People get derailed. Life is messy. Nature is messy. Our logic, our will is maybe a little bit more linear and clashes with nature, which is very volatile. So yeah, we can have sometimes derailment, and that's why I think stating your goals is very healthy. So we need to go out there and be very clear about, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. Are you guys on board with us? If the answer is yes, then the next level would be to find all the things we can do to get back on track. So maybe we should train more. Maybe we should bring in better players. Maybe we should raise money to make the existing players more comfortable. Maybe there are money issues. Maybe whatever it is, discuss it profoundly and deeply and honestly. This is not always easy in a group of people, but this again is what I would suggest we should be doing in this case. And again, for the listeners, this is very important. This applies to your hedge fund. This applies to your life, your job, whatever it is you're dealing with. Let's say you are a rookie 1-2 year hedge fund manager. You just started. You have 50 million under management, and you're trying to grow, and it's not going well. Okay, state your goal. What is it you're trying to achieve? I want to be 200 million in 10 years. Okay, to get to that goal, you need to deliver returns. You need to have a certain setup that allows you to raise money. And why don't you go talk to your constituency, to your stakeholders, whoever they are, your employees or your wife or whoever. You must have some stakeholders, and make sure they're on board with you. And then let's look at the resources. Let's look at the resources to get back to my son's team. You can't play at the highest level without the right resources, which means players, coaching, fields, support from the club, money, so they need to travel. Are these resources available? And if not, why not? Can we get them? So those are very, I think, factual conversations. Once you bring a situation like this to that level, it all of a sudden starts looking, in my view at least, pretty manageable. It's not that scary anymore, because often these types of things, they can look very scary because you don't know where the future is. You feel like you're wasting time. You feel like you're in the wrong place and all that stuff. Once you sort of parse the problem into all these elements, what is my goal? What are my stakeholders? Are they sharing my goal? If yes, do we have the right resources? All of a sudden, the conversation becomes relatively easy to manage. And then, of course, if the answer to any of those questions is no, so if you're not in sync with your stakeholders, if you don't have the resources, then you have to, I think, contemplate to pull the plug, go somewhere else. In our situation, it's actually even a little bit more complicated. We also have issues, let's say business related, and even issues such as we're not really happy living in California anymore for certain reasons. So there's a couple of things that are coming together and sort of nudging us towards pulling the plug, going somewhere else and starting from scratch. And I think that's probably what's going to happen, because given all the issues that are accumulating, this could be the right thing to do. We're not quitters by any means, but if certain institutional frameworks, laws, culture, if things like that, if my stakeholders are not in sync with me, and this applies as much to a team, to a business, as much as to, let's say, a city like San Francisco where we live in, where I feel like the stakeholders, so our surroundings, our politics in the city, they're just not in sync with me anymore. Certain things are happening that I don't agree with, and therefore, either I change that or I have to go somewhere else. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think, to summarize, this episode was a little bit of definitely therapeutic on my side, just sharing some of the deeper problems that we're going through right now as a business and a family. I think it applies to the business of risk, because we're dealing with uncertainty, we're dealing with the future that has problems. I think the answer to all these things is really try to parse the problem into manageable pieces, and first and foremost, always be clear, what is my goal? The purpose of Orange Capital Partners is to generate wealth by investing in fundamental new concepts and engineering practices. If we achieve that, but then we get taxed away most of our wealth for some whatever random reasons, then we have to do something about that. If we are living in a place, that's unfortunately the case for us right now, where we're not in sync anymore with the local politics at a big scale. No, not the details. We're not talking about smaller little issues here and there that always come up. These are big, fundamental, philosophical issues that we're not sharing it with anymore. Then we have to either change it or go somewhere else. And finally, if we have a situation like my son's situation, where his professional sports career, I would say, is on the line, and unfortunately, like in most sports, but in this particular sport, in soccer, it is not just in his hands. You do depend on your team, on your coaching, on your club. It's not MMA, where maybe if you have the right coach, you the coach can get to the top. This is definitely a more complex situation, and I think once we establish our goals, we can then share these goals with our stakeholders, again, the club, the coaching, the parents, the players, see if we have the same goals, and then, which is very more important, once we have our goals, do we have the right resources? And if not, how can we get them? So those are the kinds of conversations that we're going to have in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to share updates, and we're going to go from there. But I think what's very important about this conversation is that situations can be fixed, and particularly situations of uncertainty, situations of maybe even uncomfortable, unease, all these types of situations can be fixed if you parse the problem properly, set the goals, and then deal with the consequences. Thank you.